The rain came in slow whispers, brushing the rooftop like it was grieving with her. Olivia Bennet sat on the edge of her bed, still as stone, while thunder rolled far away, too distant to save her now. She had always believed some things were sacred, her body, her choices, her future. But tonight, all of that was slipping away on a piece of paper signed by the only man left in her family. Downstairs, behind a closed door, her father was murmuring in hushed, broken tones. The other voice, deeper, colder, sharper. Nathaniel Carter. His name traveled like a ghost through corridors of power and fear. The kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to control a room. Rumors said his competitors vanished without a trace. Reporters called him America's most dangerous billionaire. Now he was about to become her husband. No, her owner. Her father's footsteps echoed on the stairs, stopping outside her door. "Olivia," he called. Just her name. Nothing more. She stood, knees trembling beneath a soft blue dress her mother once loved. The irony stung. Her mother, dead from cancer. Her father, alive but rotting from debt and cowardice. She descended the stairs like a prisoner to her execution. In the living room, Nathaniel stood by the fireplace. Black suit pressed to perfection, his posture unreadable. His gaze swept over her. Not lustful, not even curious, just clinical. On the table between them lay a folder. He gestured to it. "The contract is ready." Olivia didn't move. She stared at it like it was a trap, which in every way it was. Her voice, when it came, was quiet. "This isn't a marriage. It's a transaction." A flicker. His eyes shifted, fractionally. Her father stepped forward, his voice brittle. "Olivia, just sign. Once this is done, everything changes." She turned to him. What kind of father sells his daughter to save himself? The silence that followed was louder than thunder. Nathaniel's voice cut through it. "You can walk away. Let the debt swallow your father whole. Watch him lose everything. His house, his reputation, his life. Or—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Tears didn't come. Anger didn't break loose. Instead, Olivia reached for the pen with fingers that no longer felt like her own. The moment the ink touched the page, it was as if a door slammed shut behind her, locking the girl she had been in a room she'd never see again. The car ride was silent. Outside the tinted windows, trees blurred past like mourners in black. Inside, the tension between them was suffocating. Nathaniel didn't look at her. She didn't try to look at him. The Carter estate appeared out of the mist like a fortress. High walls, cold stone, wrought iron gates that opened too slowly. Inside, the mansion smelled of money and silence. Staff lined up like statues. No greetings, no welcome. Just the weight of expectation and the scent of polished control. Nathaniel led her through a hallway so pristine it looked untouched by time. "This will be your room," he said, opening a pair of ornate double doors. It was massive, elegant, empty, beige walls, golden details, a bed that looked like a throne, no photos, no warmth. "You have everything you need," he added, stepping back, "and nothing more." Then he left, closing the door with a quiet finality. For a long time, Olivia just stood there, letting the silence press in. Then she walked to the mirror. The girl staring back at her wasn't someone she recognized. Olivia Bennet was gone. Her face still looked the same. Same high cheekbones, same storm-colored eyes. But something behind them had changed. She wasn't Nathaniel Carter's wife. Not really, not yet. But even as she whispered the truth aloud, the words tasted like defiance. "I may be trapped, but I am not broken." And for the first time in her life, she realized something terrifying and powerful. She would survive this, and he would never see her bow. The Carter estate was quieter than death. Every step Olivia took echoed through the grand marble halls like a warning. You don't belong here. The staff didn't meet her eyes. They moved around her with silent precision, as if her presence disrupted the balance of the house. She wasn't a guest. She wasn't even family. She was an obligation. A body placed inside the mansion like expensive furniture, untouched and untouched for a reason. Her new room had everything she could possibly need, but nothing she actually wanted. Thick curtains blocked out the light. A fireplace remained unlit. The bed was enormous, but cold. The air smelled of aged wood and money. Not home, not safety, just control. It was only the second night, and Olivia already felt like the walls were closing in. She paced the room slowly, barefoot on the soft rug, her hands brushing over polished surfaces that held no dust, no flaws, no warmth. At midnight, she heard footsteps, measured, firm, unmistakably his, echoing down the corridor. Her heart jumped. She stepped away from the door, breath caught in her throat. But Nathaniel didn't stop. He walked past like she didn't exist. It shouldn't have mattered. She didn't want him, didn't need his gaze or his attention. But something about the deliberate distance stung more than she expected. You wanted a bride, and you treat her like a ghost? Fine. If he wanted a ghost, she'd haunt him. The next morning she woke to the sound of light tapping at her door. A young maid stood there, eyes downcast. "Breakfast is served in the East Dining Hall, ma'am." Ma'am. Like she was someone important, someone respected. She followed the girl down the endless corridors until they reached a room too large for two people. The table stretched like a runway. At the far end, Nathaniel sat in silence, reading the newspaper, a cup of black coffee untouched beside him. Only two place settings, one for him, one for her. She took her seat wordlessly. No one spoke. The silverware gleamed. The fruit was perfectly sliced. And the silence? Crushing. Nathaniel didn't look up until halfway through his meal. "Are you afraid of me?" he asked, as if it were a business question. She didn't hesitate. "No, I'm disgusted. The fear comes later." A flicker. His knife paused for just a second before continuing to cut his steak. "I see," he said quietly. She smiled, not sweetly, but with fire. In the days that followed, Olivia explored the mansion alone. She learned the rhythms of the place, the staff's routines, the locked doors, the way Nathaniel disappeared into his west wing and didn't emerge until evening. She wandered through cold galleries, pristine libraries, and endless corridors with portraits of ancestors who looked just as grim as their heir. No one stopped her. But everyone watched. It wasn't freedom. It was surveillance dressed in elegance. Still, she took mental notes. Exit doors, hidden staircases, windows that creaked, guards who looked bored after dark. Not because she planned to run, not yet, but because information was the only power she had left. One evening, she chose to dine in a simple white dress, hair unpinned, lips painted red, not to seduce him, but to remind herself she was still alive, still hers. He noticed. He said nothing when he entered, but his eyes, briefly, lingered. She met his gaze and didn't flinch. "Trying to provoke me?" he asked, pouring a glass of wine. "No," she said calmly. "Just refusing to disappear." He didn't smile, but his lips twitched, just slightly. The Cold War between them escalated in silence. Every day became a test, a line drawn in invisible ink. Who would speak first? Who would flinch? Who would break? But Olivia wouldn't give him the satisfaction. And Nathaniel? He seemed curious. almost like he'd never met someone who wasn't afraid of him. One morning, while walking through a sunlit corridor lined with stained glass, she heard his footsteps behind her. Slow, deliberate. She didn't turn. "Starting to understand how things work around here?" he asked, voice low. She stopped, breathed in. "I'm not here to understand," she said. "I'm here to endure." A long silence stretched between them. Then she added, "But don't mistake endurance for obedience. I didn't come here to lose." He didn't answer. But when she turned her head slightly, she saw it. The faintest crease in his perfect composure. A crack. Good. She wasn't just surviving. She was getting to him. The library became Olivia's quiet rebellion. Every day, after the sterile breakfasts and the stifling silence, she found her way back to that high-ceilinged room, lined with shelves that stretched like walls. Here she could think, breathe, plot. She wasn't reading. She was searching. For something, anything, that explained Nathaniel Carter. Then one afternoon she found it. A leather-bound album tucked behind thick legal volumes. Not labeled, not locked, just waiting. She opened it, and her heart stopped. The first photo was simple, a woman laughing, sunlight tangled in her hair. Behind her stood a younger Nathaniel, eyes soft, hand resting on her waist like she was something fragile he didn't deserve. Grace Hamilton. The name was written in careful handwriting at the bottom corner. Olivia flipped through the pages. Picnics, road trips, snowy cabins, love in snapshots, a life Nathaniel once lived, a life he had buried. The final page was different. A newspaper clipping, yellowed with time. Diplomat's daughter dies in car crash. Suspect flees scene. Name released, Arthur Bennett. Arthur Bennett, her father. Olivia's fingers froze over the page. Her mind tried to resist what her eyes already knew. She wasn't just some pawn in a business deal. She was the daughter of the man who had taken the love of Nathaniel Carter's life. She was his revenge. The door creaked open. She looked up. Nathaniel stood in the doorway, his eyes locked on the album in her hands. His face didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Something old, raw. "She was your world," Olivia said softly. No accusation, just truth. He stepped inside, slowly, like the air had thickened. "She was the only thing that ever felt right," he said. "And I'm your punishment for losing her," she said. Silence. Nathaniel looked away, toward the fire that wasn't lit. His voice was low, bare. "I didn't know how to carry that grief, so I gave it a face. Yours." Olivia swallowed, pain and clarity crashing together inside her. "I didn't kill her," she said. "I didn't even know she existed." "I know." His voice cracked on the edge of confession. "I thought if I could hate you enough, it would make it easier to forget her." "But you didn't forget," she said. "You built a cage with her memory and locked both of us inside." He said nothing. And maybe that was the first honest thing between them. That night, Olivia lay awake in her bed, the shadows shifting across the ceiling like ghosts. For the first time since entering this house, she understood why the walls were so thick. They weren't just to keep her in. They were built to keep her out. From the man inside. The one still haunted by love. The night was heavy with humidity. The kind of air that sticks to your skin and tells you something is about to break. Olivia hadn't slept. She couldn't. Nathaniel's confession echoed in her mind, soft, fractured, and incomplete. But it wasn't just the truth that kept her awake. It was what it meant. This house wasn't a home. It was a monument to grief. And she was a living, breathing punishment. Not anymore. She waited until 3 a.m., when the guards changed shifts and the halls turned silent. Wrapped in a black cloak, hair tied tight, She moved like a whisper through the east wing. She had memorized every camera angle, every blind corner. She wasn't escaping out of fear. She was escaping to prove she still could. Through the laundry corridor, past the dark garden, her bare feet damp from dew, her heart thudding like a drum. Then, just 10 feet from the outer gate, a voice sliced the silence. Disappointing. She froze. Nathaniel stepped from the shadows, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled, eyes darker than the night around them. Her voice shook, but not from fear. "Going to kill me now?" He stepped closer, slow and deliberate. "No," he said, "but you need to understand. You don't leave without consequences. I'm not your prisoner." "You're not," he replied. "You're my consequence." The words hit like stone. She squared her shoulders. "You used me to punish a ghost, but I'm not her, and I'm not my father." Silence. Then he looked at her, really looked, and the rage in his expression cracked, revealing something else, pain. "I didn't marry you out of desire," he said, his voice low. "I did it for revenge." She sucked in a breath, steadying herself against the truth she already knew. "So, what now?" she asked. "You keep me here until you feel healed? Or until I become a ghost, too?" His jaw clenched. "I don't know anymore." She stepped closer, eyes bright with fury. "You want me to carry the guilt of a man I barely speak to? You want me to absorb your hate, your history, your brokenness?" "No." He looked stunned, not because of what she said, but because she meant it. "I am not yours to break," she said, "and I will never be yours to own." Then she turned to leave, not to run, but to reclaim whatever pieces of herself she still had. Behind her, he didn't follow. He just stood there, still, haunted. And for the first time since she'd arrived, Olivia realized something more dangerous than hatred was growing between them. Something neither of them was ready to name. The mansion returned to its usual silence. But inside that silence, something shifted. Olivia no longer walked its marble halls like a ghost. She moved with purpose, chin high, steps steady. If Nathaniel had hoped to wear her down, he'd failed. If anything, he had sharpened her. She chose to eat her meals in the sunroom now, not the grand dining hall. She wore color, scarlet, emerald, wine, not to impress, but to reclaim her skin. And when she passed Nathaniel in the corridor, she looked him straight in the eye. He never looked away. That morning, she sat alone in the sunroom, surrounded by jasmine and morning light. A tray of untouched breakfast sat in front of her. Outside, birds chirped in defiance of the mansion's suffocating stillness. The quiet broke with heavy footsteps. "You were expected in the dining hall?" Nathaniel's voice came from behind her, low, controlled. "I heard," she replied calmly, not bothering to turn. "I just didn't care." He stepped closer. "You think this is some kind of game?" She rose slowly, finally facing him. "No, because if it were, you'd already be losing." His expression faltered. Just for a second. She had never yelled at him, never screamed or cried. That, perhaps, was what rattled him most. Olivia Carter was not a storm. She was the fire beneath the ice. That evening, at dinner, she asked for grilled fish. She was served steak, Nathaniel's preference. She cut the meat with grace, but didn't eat a bite. "I asked for fish." "This is what's available," he said without looking up. Olivia placed her utensils down and folded her hands. "A wife is not a soldier," she said quietly. "And I don't march unless I believe in the war." Nathaniel looked up. His stare was sharp, but behind it, confusion, frustration, fascination. "You're playing with fire." She leaned forward just enough for her words to sting. Maybe fire burns less than the ice you carry inside. The silence between them snapped like a string pulled too tight. That night, unable to sleep, Olivia wandered barefoot through the west wing, the one Nathaniel had previously locked after she'd found the music room. The doors were unlocked now, but empty. She walked slowly, her nightgown whispering against her skin, her hair loose around her shoulders. She didn't expect to see him. But there he was, standing in the main hall, dark suit, glass of whiskey in hand, eyes unreadable. "You're still awake," he said. "I could say the same for you." He studied her. "You're trying to provoke me." She held his gaze. "No, I'm trying to live." Something shifted behind his eyes. "You're different than I expected," he murmured. "I'm not here to meet expectations," she replied. "Maybe that's why you hate me." His eyes darkened. For the first time, something in him cracked. "Because I can't control you," she added. "Because I'm not her." The words hung between them, heavy with ghosts. Nathaniel turned away, jaw tight, eyes distant. And Olivia knew. She'd touched a wound so deep he hadn't dared name it in years. The mansion was silent, but Olivia's heart wasn't. She sat awake in her room, unable to shake the tension in the air. It was too quiet, too still. Then came the footsteps, fast, uneven, urgent. She opened her door just as a staff member raced past, eyes wide. "What happened?" she asked. The man hesitated. "An intruder. Mr. Carter's handling it." "Alone?" Without thinking, Olivia ran, barefoot through the halls, down the marble stairs, into the garden lit by pale security lights. There, in the center of the lawn, she saw him. Nathaniel locked in combat with a masked man. They fought like animals, raw, ruthless. Then the glint of metal, a knife. Before fear could stop her, Olivia grabbed a decorative stone from the garden and hurled it. It hit the attacker's arm hard enough to make him stumble. Nathaniel moved instantly, disarming, slamming the man to the ground just as guards rushed in. It was over. But the moment was not. Nathaniel turned, blood on his cheek, eyes blazing. "Are you insane?" "I saved you," she fired back. "You could have been killed!" "You think I care?" she shouted. "You can hate me all you want, Nathaniel, but I feel, and you won't take that from me." They stood inches apart, both shaking, from fury, from fear, from something deeper. His hand caught her wrist, not rough, not soft, just real. "You don't have the right to." "Save you?" she snapped. "And you don't have the right to use me." Their breath mingled. The air between them cracked. Then he kissed her. It wasn't tender. It was war. His lips collided with hers like he was trying to erase everything he couldn't admit. And Olivia kissed him back, not because she forgave him, but because she needed it too. When they pulled apart, both breathless, his voice broke the silence. "This shouldn't have happened." "But it did," she whispered. He stepped back, eyes still on her, then disappeared into the shadows of the corridor. Olivia remained in the garden, wind brushing her skin, heart racing for reasons she no longer understood. Everything had changed, and it was only beginning. The kiss haunted them both. Nathaniel disappeared into his routines, longer meetings, late-night drives, unreadable silence. Olivia didn't chase him. But the space between them grew thick with questions neither of them asked aloud. Then came the nausea. It started one morning, sudden and violent. Olivia barely made it to the bathroom before collapsing to the floor, gasping for air as her heart pounded. Her mind raced. She hadn't dared let herself consider the possibility. Not until now. Digging through the first aid kit in the upstairs hall, her hands found a dusty, sealed pregnancy test. Forgotten. unopened. Her fingers shook as she held it under the bathroom light. 30 minutes later, she sat on the edge of her bed, eyes locked on the result. 2 lines. Pregnant. The word echoed in her skull like a bell. She wasn't afraid. Not exactly. But this wasn't something she could carry alone. That evening, she waited for him. Nathaniel entered the sitting room like usual, guarded, distant. But the moment he saw her face, he stopped. "What is it?" he asked. Olivia met his gaze. Steady, calm. "I'm pregnant." The air seemed to vanish. He blinked, stunned. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "Twice." Nathaniel stepped back, like he needed space to process what he couldn't control. "I'm not asking anything from you," Olivia said softly. "I just thought you should know." He turned away, resting a hand on the fireplace mantel. His voice was low, rough. "A child." "Our child," she corrected. He looked over at her, really looked, and something shifted in his eyes. Not fear, recognition. "I'm sorry," he said after a long silence. "For everything." Olivia stepped closer. "Then show me. Not with words, but with change." He didn't respond with promises. He just pulled her gently into an embrace. And for the first time since she entered his world, he held her like she was no longer a transaction, but something real. The Carter estate was still made of stone, but for the first time it no longer felt like a prison. The change was slow, almost imperceptible. Lighter curtains replaced the heavy ones. Fresh flowers appeared in the hall. The cold fireplaces lit up in the evenings without anyone asking. The staff no longer walked in silence. They smiled, sometimes even at Olivia. And Nathaniel. He was changing too. He didn't vanish behind closed doors or drown himself in work like before. Instead, he stayed close. Quiet, unsure, but present. He asked about her cravings, her fatigue, whether she felt the baby move yet. His voice remained steady, but there was something new behind it. Care, fear, hope. One afternoon, Olivia found him in the nursery, once an unused room at the end of the hall. He stood at the center, shirt sleeves rolled up, brush in hand, painting an uneven shade of soft blue across the wall. There were smudges on the floor and streaks on his clothes. "You missed a spot," she said, amused. He glanced back with a sheepish grin. "I missed several." She walked over and looked at the room. Still incomplete, still rough, but alive with effort. "You don't have to do this yourself," she said gently. "I know," he replied, setting the brush down. "But I want to." Their eyes met. The silence wasn't awkward. It was honest. That evening, they sat on the back porch as the sun dipped behind the trees. Olivia rested a hand on her stomach. Nathaniel sat beside her, close but careful. "If it's a boy," he said suddenly, "I'd like to name him Noah." She turned to him, surprised. "Why Noah?" He looked at the fading sky, voice low. "Because it means peace, and I think I'm starting to understand what that feels like." She said nothing, but she didn't let go of his hand. The morning Noah arrived, the sky was soft and gray, as if even the clouds were holding their breath. Olivia knew this wasn't another false alarm. The pain came in steady waves, deep and grounding. Her body moved with ancient knowledge. Her mind, however, swirled with fear, excitement, and something she hadn't felt in a long time, readiness. Nathaniel stayed with her through every contraction. He didn't pace the hallway or hide behind a door. He held her hand, tight, unwavering. He wiped the sweat from her forehead and whispered small words that carried more weight than he knew. "You're strong." "I'm here. Just a little longer." When Olivia screamed, he didn't flinch. When she cursed him, he didn't retreat. When she cried, he didn't look away. Hours blurred together until, finally, a sound tore through the air. A single cry, sharp, pure, life. Their son. Nathaniel stood frozen, staring at the tiny human placed in his arms, wrinkled, pink, and impossibly small. His chest rose unevenly. His hands trembled. This wasn't power. This wasn't control. This was something else, sacred. He turned to Olivia, who was pale and exhausted, but smiling with tears in her eyes. "Is he okay?" she whispered. Nathaniel looked down at the baby, then back at her. "He's perfect." He sat beside her, still cradling the child, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. There was nothing to say, only something to feel. This wasn't the ending of a painful story. It was the beginning of something real. That night, as the house settled into silence, Nathaniel stood by the crib and whispered the boy's name. Noah. He reached for Olivia's hand, and for the first time in his life, meant every word that followed. "Thank you for not running, for staying, for giving me a second chance, even when I didn't deserve it." She squeezed his hand gently. "You didn't have to be perfect," she said. "You just had to be here." And finally he was. Light streamed through the... Noah slept against Olivia's chest in a stroller as she guided it through the garden. Golden leaves drifted at her feet. Beside her, Nathaniel walked a careful step behind, watching. He stopped near the fountain where their story had once begun in grief. "I was cruel," he. Olivia looked to him, her hand finding his in the crisp air. "We can't change how it started," she replied. "But this, what we built." Nathaniel knelt beside them, gazing at their son. "I never expected this." He smiled, and it was real. "This peace. You've given us a gift beyond any empire." She smiled back. "Noah is our second chance," she said. "And together we chose to be." That evening, in the sunroom flickering with lamplight, the estate felt alive. Lighter drapes replaced heavy curtains. Fresh flowers, lilies, daisies, stood in every corner. Nathaniel joined Olivia on a plush chair, brushing her hair back as she rocked Noah gently. He looked at her with solemn affection. "You are my home," he whispered, voice steady. "Pull." Her eyes softened. "But now I can't imagine not loving." He leaned forward and kissed her gently. No grand declarations, no contracts, just two people who chose freedom, love, and family on their own terms. As Noah stirred in her arms, Olivia tightened her grip on Nathaniel's. Their hearts,